Transitions and body paragraphs. We need logic and flow, or we'd like it anyway. Okay, the one thing we're going to talk about is transition, or the first thing is transition sentences. And I already talked a little bit about it when we talked about introductory paragraphs. And it says paragraphs are not lonely islands, but rather archipelago. Archipelago, for those of you who may not know, is a little group of linked islands. So all paragraphs need to be linked together. Fascinating metaphor there. So anyway, the means for doing so is the transition sentence. Often transition sentences use words and phrases like additionally, moreover, at the same time that effectively connect paragraph to paragraph. So what you need is, between every paragraph, there has to be a sentence that applies to both and links both. Transition sentences, they can come at the end of the first paragraph or at the beginning of the following paragraph. There just needs to be connecting sentences that establishes a logical link between the two paragraphs. After we do our introductory paragraph and before we do the concluding paragraph, we have body paragraphs. All body paragraphs should support the thesis statement from your introductory paragraph. So if you remember going back to introductory paragraph, we did the funnel and we ended up with a thesis statement, and that thesis statement is a sentence that says, here's what our paper is all about. Well, after that, all body paragraphs should be evidence that is supplied for our thesis statement. In other words, those body paragraphs have to back up what we said with our thesis statement in our introductory paragraph. All body paragraphs are logically consistent with themselves, within themselves rather. So what this means is, if I have a body paragraph and that body paragraph is talking about, so I have a paper and it's about amphibians of Wisconsin. And one body paragraph is about frogs and another one's about salamanders. Well, when I do the paragraph about salamanders, every sentence in that paragraph needs to be logically consistent. So in other words, every sentence within that paragraph needs to be about salamanders. I don't want to start about salamanders and then throw a bullfrog in there. Salamanders and bullfrogs are natural enemies anyway. All these body paragraphs should be connected, once again, with transition sentences. And body paragraphs, as I've already mentioned, are the means by which you argue your thesis statement. They provide evidence to back up what you're trying to say. Never leave a body paragraph alone. They resent it and they respond by ruining your paper. Body paragraphs are childish little fellows. What this means is that a body paragraph has got to go back to your introductory paragraph and your thesis statement. They do not stand alone. So we'll talk a little bit about setting up your paper, and I'll talk about this more in the future. You want to think about what you're going to write before you do so, and it's as important as the writing process itself. So a lot of times what happens is people start writing and then they realize, hey, this line of logic doesn't work. It's not the way to do it. The way to do it is create your introductory paragraph, know what your thesis statement is, and then plan out your paper. So I know in this body paragraph I'm going to talk about this body paragraph I'm talking about that, and then they should transition together. So once again, you want to have a fine thesis sentence. In this case, I'm going to say Generation X is the greatest generation ever. That's not only a fine thesis sentence or statement, it is also the truth. So this is a declaratory statement that serves as the basis for the remainder of the paper, right? Now we want to think about why Generation X is the greatest generation ever. And as I say, this should be easy. So there are many reasons available to us. In this example, we'll find 3 reasons as to why Generation X is the greatest generation ever, and these 3 reasons will serve as our body. Reason 1 serves as the first paragraph of our body. Generation X has the best music there ever was. So in this case, the paragraph is all about Generation X's music. That paragraph, of course, goes back to why our thesis, Generation X is the greatest generation ever. Reason 2, which serves as the second paragraph of our body, Generation X is the most cynical and therefore the most realistic of all generations. In this paragraph, everything we write in paragraph 2 should be about the cynicism of Generation X. And our third reason, which will serve as the third paragraph of our body, Generation X is sandwiched between the baby boomers and the millennials, and we hardly ever complain, we being me, and the rest of my generation about this bad break. So everything can be about how generation doesn't complain about who they have to deal with. 1, 2, 3. In this case, there are 3 body paragraphs that back up our thesis statement that is Generation X is the greatest generation ever. There's logic to all this, and it all flows together. So once again, to summarize, we have a thesis statement. Generation X is the greatest generation. We also have 3 reasons, which coincide with our body paragraphs, for why we think generation is the greatest generation. All the reasons must go back to the thesis statement. And of course, we need transition sentences that will link our paragraphs together. Otherwise, the logic and flow of our paper is compromised. And the last thing we will do is to write our conclusion, but that will be in another video.